Thank you everyone for coming to For Wild Places 11th trail chat. We're up in the double figures now. My name's Will. I'm based in Port Kembla, which is Dharawal land, just south of Sydney. My pronouns are he, him. I work for Wild Places. We are a trail running group that seek to protect the wild places that we love to run in. Today, we are super stoked to have a special guest. And like many of our guests, this guest needs no introduction to you folk whatsoever. She's an ultra marathoner, an Ironwoman, and a self-confessed foodie, which is maybe my favorite title. Please give a big welcome and a big thanks to Lucy Bartholomew.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. Yeah, now, just before we started the chat, we started talking about what you were up to, but I'm really keen to talk about Tarawera. But before we get there, I can see you've been uber busy since then. So what have you been up to recently and how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I got back from New Zealand mid-February, sorry. And then have just been enjoying being home. So I have my flight out of Australia for March 30th. So I've just kind of had like a portion of time at home before a big 3 months away. And so just been doing all the things I love, getting down to the surf coast, getting up into Bright where I am now, seeing all my friends, my family, hanging out with my dog, and just doing those things that I don't get to do when I'm traveling. And it feels really good. It feels, yeah, I'm getting stoked to go again. But yeah, this will always be home for me.
Actually, little tangent. Bright is beautiful. Is that where you grew up?
No. I grew up in Melbourne CBD. I live in the Yarra Valley, and then Bright's kind of a place that I've always gone to. I've had little jobs at cafes to kind of just get to live and be in the mountains, just to make it work when I was in high school.
Yeah, nice. Nice. And is that where I saw a post of you running with your dad? That was a lovely post. Is that where you've been running around with Dad?
So we were at the Warburton Trail Festival, which I know that For Wild Places was at, and Hillary was there. Warburton. Yeah, so Dad was doing the 50K lumberjack run. I did an event, my own little triathlon on the Friday to get to Warburton. And I was on dog duty all day. So it was an awesome day, and Dad had an incredible run. And just to see him, 61 years old, looking so strong and just having the time of his life, I was just like, this sport's so cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. 61 I feel is not far off for me. And I love looking at things like that. It's like people to aspire to.
Totally. Yeah, I don't have to look far for my inspiration.
Yeah. Hey, so Lucy, massive congrats on Tarawera. So Lucy just took out the 100-mile race over in Tarawera, New Zealand. Yeah, my pronunciation is fabulous. I was going to ask Lucy, how's the recovery? I mean, the recovery is obviously going pretty well, given what you're doing. But yeah, how was that, and how goes the recovery?
Yeah, I mean, I'll answer the recovery portion first, which is gone really well. Honestly, I think, I kind of have two sports going at the moment with the triathlon stuff. And so to recover from the 100 miles of running, I've just been swimming and cycling. And it's cool because it's resting my body, it's resting my mind, but it's also training. And so I feel like I'm growing in those other areas that I know need work, but I will always prioritize and choose running if I had to choose between them all. So it's kind of cool. And I feel like my body's responded super well to it. Just kind of, I gave it the time it's needed. I'm not coached at the moment. And so I've just been very internally listening to my compass of like, oh, I think I want to jog maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour, or I go for 10 minutes and I thought I wanted to do an hour, but actually 20 minutes is going to be all I'm going to do today. And that's been really, really good. I feel like it's worked for me. So we're like 4 weeks removed now. And, yeah, I feel really, really healthy and happy and stoked. And I feel like that's a big blessing after running 100 miles, just to kind of come away with, I lost a toenail and that was about it. So yeah. And then the race was, I mean, when you have a good race, I feel like recovery is a whole lot easier to navigate because you kind of just sit on cloud nine. And you know, it's probably been about 2 years between having good races for me. So it's kind of nice to actually get to be in that content, calm headspace where you're not like, oh man, I got to do something else. I need to find what's next. And just instead be like, man, I'm so stoked. I'm so happy about what happened out there. And it was just a day where everything kind of clicked and came together. And those days are very rare. But nutrition worked, and yeah, just kind of had really good energy, really good crew, good pacer, and yeah, I was able to lead the whole thing from the get-go, which again, I haven't been in that position in such a long time. But it didn't come without its challenges, that's for sure. I mean, 17 hours of anything is going to come with ups and downs, so it's just cool to navigate them and come out the other side and be like, huh, it really is just running. Like, it can be, we can complicate it so much, but really at the end of the day, that day, all I had to do was put right foot, left foot, and put some food in my mouth. Like, it's a pretty good gig.
That's so true, but I love the way you're making 100 miles sound, just easy and straightforward. I was going to ask, I mean, it's obviously a beautiful course, but was it, like, you're going for the win, was it straight pain, or did you get to experience some moments of joy? Because running's fun, yeah, like we love to run. Was it fun as well, or was this one just a pain tolerance race?
No, and I don't think I was ever in pain, to be completely honest. So I came into this race, this was my first non-Western States 100 miles, and I've had a great Western States, a very poor Western States, and then half a Western States. And so I really just wanted to kind of make peace with the distance, do a new race, and kind of just remove myself from people just associate me with Western States and associate me with 100 miles. They think I do it all the time. I don't do it all the time. I've done 2.5 and now 3.5. And so I kind of went in being like, look, if you can just have a strong, good race, that'll be success after what you've been through. You know, you've been in America, you were in negative 17 degrees a week ago. To race in the humidity of New Zealand is very, very challenging. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. And I went off harder than I would have, only because my head torch sucked so bad that I couldn't see shit. So I had to run with a guy who had like an A-up, like this amazing headlamp. And I was just praying and waiting for the sun to rise so I could slow down and kind of get my breath back. But I don't know, I just kind of found starting out hot, I was just like, actually, I think I can maintain this. Or I was curious of how long I could maintain it. And I think because I've had so many races where I have been in pain and suffered a lot, I was kind of like, I know what to do if that happens, but it just never really happened. The course got completely changed before the race. It was meant to be one big 100-mile beautiful loop, but because of landslides and the flooding that happened in New Zealand, we had we ran from Okataina to the finish line, turned around at the finish line, did the 50K loop once, came back to the finish line, did the 50K loop again. And I kind of was like mentally probably not as stoked. I never really loved to do loops twice. I'm like, do it once, you've seen it. And just to come to the finish line three times before you actually get to finish just seemed really, really mentally challenging. Yeah. But it turned out to be the best thing for me. I felt like I ran to the finish line really strongly, got out on the 50K course, started catching the back of the 50Kers, and they were, you know, the back of the pack is always the fun part of the race. They're just having the best time. And then it kind of went round again and started having like 100Kers, 100 milers, 50Kers who were just having an amazing time. And I felt like I had cheerleaders for 100 kilometers of this whole thing. And it was just really, really special. Especially, you know, like I didn't quite realize how well known I was until, people were just like losing their minds and taking photos with selfies with me. And it was just so beautiful and I was just so grateful for all of the cheers and support.
That is awesome. And I was actually going to ask you about race tactics, but that's fantastic that you were kind of forced into going hard, given your crappy head torch. Was
Hold
that,
on.
did you have any other kind of strategic approaches, or yeah, did it just kind of roll out after you started?
Yeah, I mean, getting to the start line was the hardest thing. I flew from America. My flight was changed 3 times. It was pushed back a week due to the hurricane and the flooding. And then I got there and I'd organized for some shoes, my nutrition and stuff to be sent from Australia to get to New Zealand. And none of it arrived in time because of the flooding and the delays and the backlog. And so I wore shoes that were 100% overworn. They had no tread. They were very, very worn shoes. I used nutrition that I just got at the supermarket. I bought bananas, some bread, some salty nuts, some chips, some dried, whatever I might need. I had usually I'm like gels all the way. And here I was being telling my crew if they could go to this cafe in Rotorua that does a really good quesadilla and just bring that out for me. And so there was no tactic, there was no rhythm, there was no rhyme to what I was doing. But I just had this confidence that it was going to be what it was going to be. These were all kind of things that I couldn't control. And there was no point getting all worked up about them. I had shoes, maybe they weren't the perfect ones. There's food, Rotorua has a supermarket, it's fine. Maybe it's not what I would normally do. And so it was just kind of a really cool way to kind of learn to trust yourself and learn to realize that sometimes things don't happen to you, they happen for you. Because from all of this, I've learned so much about how I can fuel and what I can kind of get away with and what I can do. Whereas if I'd written all this stuff down and made a plan on paper and just followed it to a T, I never would have risked it and found anything new from it. So yeah, it was just kind of a day of just going with the flow. But I was very lucky to have amazing support with my crew, with the people out there, the race organizers. I knew people had my back. And if things did start to go downhill, at least I was going to be surrounded by people that I know in a place that I love, doing the thing that I do really love doing.
That is amazing, especially after, look, tell me if you prefer not to talk about this because it's totally cool, but we were all pretty heartbroken for you after Western States. I saw the messages, overwhelmingly the messages coming in for you were, you're amazing, you'll bounce back, but far out, it just must have been so hard from your perspective. And then, yeah, mentally preparing for this one. How did you have that relaxed approach? Weren't you, that's amazing.
Oh, thank you. I think, after Western States, to be completely honest, I was I cared so much about Western States and I cared about it for the whole 2 years of COVID. It was the thing that got me out of bed, out the door. And I cared so much. And I think I cared almost too much. I think that my problem was that what that whole experience taught me is that I kind of thought it was respectful to Western States to have that as my only race for the year, just to put everything into it, and I think that there's merit to that. But I also think that you're setting yourself up for a very small margin of success and a lot of room for failure. And I think that it was important that I should have had I should have had some other things lined up to kind of be able to work towards and to look forward to. And so I think for me, I almost say, it's not that I didn't care. I was just the result doesn't define this. I'm not here. I wasn't even, because I was such a late entrant, I wasn't even on the list of people to win the race. I wasn't one of the people to follow because I was initially under my dad's name. So I was Ash Bartholomew. And it was only until we shifted the registrations across to Lucy that people started to see me on the entrance list and ask questions. But it was really nice because I was just kind of back to being what I was when I was that 17, 18-year-old, as the underdog, the Aussie, the young girl that's having a crack. And I felt like that was really good for me and just my expectations, but what I felt like people had of expectations of me internally and externally. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome. And man, to bounce back with the Tarawera, that's, anyway, just a massive congrats from all of us.
Thank you.
Hey, listen, just to change tack a little bit. So this coming year, it's a bit nuts, frankly. You've qualified for the UTMB Mont Blanc, but also you've qualified for the, is it all called Ironman, or do we call you you're an Ironwoman? Anyway, the Ironwoman World Champs in Kona in Hawaii. You said yourself, so one's in September, I think one's in October. Yeah, September, October. That's a full-on back-to-back and not a normal one. Yeah, tell us a bit about how you're going to adapt your training. Is your year basically just all heading up to these two events now? And also, amazing work for qualifying for both. That's crazy.
Thank you. I mean, it's so funny because after the letdown of Western States, I was never going to run 100 miles this year. I kind of thought maybe I would shift tactics and maybe do more under the 100K distance, more kind of like that 80K. And then Dad got into Western States. He had this entry for Tarawera, didn't want to lose his money, so he transferred it to me.
Wow.
And then after that, I obviously had a successful race at Tarawera, which qualified me for UTMB, and that's just not something I was going to turn down, considering how hard it is to get into. So I had these 200 miles now that I'll do this year. And how I'm going to do it. I mean, between now and UTMB, the only race that I'm really looking at is either Worlds, representing Australia and Austria, or Transvolcania in Spain. So that's May and June. Otherwise, I go to Western States, pace my dad and watch him do Western States. And then I will come back to Australia for the month of July and then fly to UTMB training camp for the rest of August. And then race UTMB, fly to America, recover and finish off any training I can do for Kona, fly to Hawaii to race. But in between, I really think that I will not be running. I will assume that if I can run 160 kilometers around Mont Blanc, I can run a marathon on the flats of Kona. But I'll just be cycling and swimming, similar to like after Tarawera, just kind of ditch the running, except for like maybe 20 minutes off the bike every now and then, but really just use cycling and swimming to recover, but also to train and to just get that kind of confidence back in those two sports. But 5 weeks, it's going to be challenging. Someone actually did a deep dive. It was so interesting. They'd made a table of all the people that have done this. So there have been 5 people that have done it around the world, the UTMB Kona double. One of them is David Goggins, which is pretty funny. So there's one woman that's done it. She was from, I think, Ireland. And she was crazy because her UTMB took her 46 hours and then Kona took her 13. So her whole time was like 60 something hours or something like that. The fastest man was from, I don't quote me on this, but maybe France. And he did UTMB in 27 hours and then Kona in 11 hours. And so his whole time was like 46 or something, but just so rad. And especially since those races are so much harder to get into these days, like UTMB is really hard even as an elite to try and qualify. And then Kona being now only every second year, with men are in Nice, women are in Kona, and next year it would be the opposite. If I'd been offered Nice or another world championships, I would have said no. I was just interested in Kona being the spiritual home of triathlon and Ironman, that I was like, that's an opportunity I don't think I'll ever get again. And it's not something I will chase afterwards. It's a kind of a one and done thing. But I think it's going to be just such a rad experience to do the pinnacles of both sports in a short time frame.
And so you'll be the 6th person ever to do this back to back.
Second female, first Aussie, and 6th ever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Hey, I'm not as familiar with, these Ironwoman competitions are basically ultra triathlons. Hey, like what are the distances for each event? So it's a marathon run.
Yeah, so it's a 3.8 kilometer swim. It's a 180 kilometer cycle, and then a 42.2K marathon. So in Busselton, my first Ironman, the swim took me 1 hour and 10 minutes. The ride took me just under 6 hours, and then the run took me 3 hours 20. So I'm an okay swimmer. I'm a terrible cyclist, but most triathletes hate running. And so the marathon for me was, I think I went from maybe ninth in my age category up to third, purely because I actually enjoyed the whole running experience. Whereas everyone else was that's not their favorite part.
Is the swim an ocean swim?
It is, yes, correct.
Wow. There's a local triathlon in my suburb that happens every month, and I'm training to do one of them, and the swim is 200 meters. I'll let you know how that goes.
Please do.
Oh, wow. Well, best of luck for those. We'll be definitely keeping an eye on that. So you're training. So do you, well, you say you're like cycling's not your strength. Are you, like, what are you going to focus on in the, well, you can't really focus on stuff because the UTMB is like literally the month before. How are you going to balance all of that? Yeah, all of that training.
Yeah, what I've really realized through training for the Ironman and seeing how my body has kind of, the hours have gone up because obviously you spend so much time on a bike, then the hours in the water, but my running has gone down. So you've got two sports which are low impact, and my body has just thrived off the fact that maybe I'm training 20 hours a week, but only 5 of that is running. Whereas usually I would train for 13 hours of running a week. And so I really just enjoyed, and I found that the cycling has complemented the running so much. And then the swimming is kind of just like a stretch / massage. Like, I don't swim very hard. I'm just like enjoying the water and the mental peacefulness that comes with putting your head underwater. No one can talk to you. No phone can be near you. And so I really find that it's a really beautiful balance. What I think that people have is a bad kind of relationship with cycling and swimming, because it's usually what runners do when they're injured. And so for them, it's kind of, for people, it's like, oh, you know, swimming and cycling are just, they're like only when I'm injured. Whereas for me, they're things that I really enjoy. And I'm really trying to learn how to, like, the cycling isn't my strongest, and it comes from just like, I just don't understand a bike. Like, I'm scared of flats. I'm scared of something happening to the chain. I wouldn't know what to do with it. I've got a very nice bike. I don't know what that means. Like, you know, it's just kind of like, it's very foreign. Whereas like running, if I roll my ankle on the trail, I know how to deal with that. If I see a snake, I know how to deal with that. If I bonk, I know how to bonk. But I don't know how to do that kind of with the running. And then with the swimming, I absolutely hate people touching my feet. And I hate in these mass starts, people just grab your feet, touch your toes, and that just makes me want to gag. And I hate touching other people's feet. So I just had this like gag response. I would swim super wide of everyone just to avoid people. And I'd rather swim 4.5 kilometers just to have my own space, but it's not efficient.
All right, cool. So if we're watching and we see Lucy like out here, it's like, oh, it's all right. She's just avoiding feet.
Don't be concerned.
Hey, how are you with the transitions? I know that's heaps important. Yeah, do you need to train them, or do you feel all right about those?
So I didn't wear a wetsuit for Busselton. I wore just a speed suit, which is like really easy to get off. And the reason I didn't wear the wetsuit is because putting a wetsuit on and off is the worst thing in the world. It's like the 4th discipline of the triathlon. Yeah. I think my heart rate gets higher doing that. And so I do need to practice that. And then from cycle to run, I was pretty efficient. I would say that the only thing would be the swim to cycle, getting that kind of like putting your helmet on before you can touch your bike, like doing all those things that you just don't want to get kind of in trouble for. And also just making sure that I take all my nutrition that I need, because that was something that I didn't feel super well for the Ironman, because I was just so nervous about everything. Like on the bike, I just couldn't even take my hands off the handlebars to eat something, because I was just holding on for dear life. But yeah, so it's just kind of like that will just need to be finessed. But doing that kind of ride to run transition, so 20 minutes off the bike, is kind of like the best training you can do for your legs, and just bringing down that time it takes for your body to adapt. So like when I first ran off the bike, the first 30 minutes were just kind of like all over the shop. Like I would go really fast because the cadence on the bike is really fast. Then my heart rate would like spike because it was like, what are you doing? But then I kind of got that down to probably like the first 8 minutes. So the first 2 kilometers, I was like, oh, okay, like this is like different. And then my body just like chilled out and was like, oh, we're running. Okay, easy. Like we got this. Like, let's just fall into that nice rhythm. So kind of practicing that transition is probably going to be the most important out there.
Yeah, nice. Oh, amazing. Now it's just gone 1:30, folks. So I'll just there's a few people on this call. Maybe put your hand up if you would like to ask Lucy a question. I've got a couple more which we can come back to if we still have time. But yeah, also just wanted to give another plug for, if you'd like to join for Wild Places, check out our membership page. There's a little link in the chat there. And today only, you can join up for 15% off for $102. And it's super helpful for Wild Places to run our operations day to day. We've just flagged our date for the next Pilliga Ultra later this year in September. So all of our events, a growing membership just really helps us do what we do. So yeah, feel free to jump in and ask a question at any time. Hillary.
I can't work out how to do it digitally, so I'll do it manually.
That hand is fine.
Yeah. No, I'm really interested with your cross training, Lucy, because I guess coming after I broke my leg, I realized how shit running is for your body, because it's so high impact, and then you get on the bike and stuff and you're like, oh, this doesn't like kill me and ruin all my joints and that sort of thing. But it's really hard to enjoy it because running's so easy. Like I feel like it's the most time efficient like bit of exercise. So I guess I don't know, how did you kind of find that? I feel like signing up for something is a good way to like motivate you to get out there because you kind of feel you have to. But like, what other like, I don't know, motivations or like tricks did you have to kind of, actually get yourself out on the bike or for a swim or doing the strength and the flexibility and all that stuff that is so important?
Yeah, well, if you can work out how I can get strength and flexibility into my routine, that would be lovely, because I don't do that. Yeah, I mean, my biggest thing for triathlon and for multi-sport is the inaccessibility of the amount of gear you need. What I love about running is that when you tell people you should do it, you're not telling them they need to fork out a loan from the bank to be able to perform the sport. And you can usually, get a pair of shoes and then you're pretty sorted. What I found really challenging was just the amount of gear. And it was like, yes, you have a bike, but then you need your cleats and then you need your helmet. Don't forget your bloody repair kit, because that thing falls apart all the time. And then you need your swimsuit. Don't forget your goggles. And then you need your, and it's just like when I traveled to the Ironman, I've never traveled with like a bike bag and like the excess amount of equipment. I'm always just like a backpack with my shoes, which I'm normally wearing. So it's like very minimal. I can go carry on only. Awesome. And so I found it really challenging, and I still do. Like I still kind of like it, I hate having to take my wheels off my bike to put it in my car, put all the seats down, can't take the dog. It's just kind of all of that. But I would say that the biggest thing is like find people in the sport that can help you. So for me, like I've made really good friends with people who would help me dismantle and make my bike back up and would get me out for the rides and stuff and be like, come down to Geelong, let's go riding. Just kind of like leaning on the community was really, really important for me, because it definitely isn't my default. My default is I want to take a pair of runners and I want to be able to run. And the cool thing is with running is that you can map a route anywhere. And if it's dirt roads, trails, normal roads, whatever, you can just run on it. You can run on highways. It's fine. Beaches, no problem. In roads, you've got to look if there's a nice shoulder, if it's okay, like surface for the bike. I've got very thin wheels. I'm not really that talented to be on anything gravelly. And so it is kind of like just that extra bit of preparation that just like, it's just probably not my default mentality. But I would say that people and just reaching out and asking for help and sourcing what you can and just kind of just embracing it and going the long-term approach. Like, don't think you're just going to be a cyclist for the next 6 months. Be a cyclist for the next 6 years and kind of just invest slowly in that. yeah, I don't think I'm going to be a triathlete, an Ironman past 1 year, but I think
Yeah. Well, you can dial it down and just do it, you know, for just, I don't know, not normal amounts, but yeah, and I think that's the thing for me as well, is the thought of like, I guess, living down on the surf coast, of like cycling down there, like, because yeah, the thought of having to put my bike in the car, whereas you just want to go from home, but going on the Great Ocean Road just fills me with fear. So yeah, I'm thinking I like the idea of this gravel biking thing, so I think I want to look into that, because, but yeah, and then finding the community and the kind of accountability partners to go along with that, because yeah, it's like pretty easy to be like, look out at the ocean, be like, oh, it's too rough today, or it's too this, or it's too that, or you know, you just got to get out there and make the most of it. And yeah, I guess just in like back off the back of that, like how you said you feel, yeah, like what are the kind of the positive things you've found, like body wise, and just how you're feeling now that you are cross training more than you ever have? And like, I guess, what advice would you have to people who are like, oh, you know, I don't need to cross train, it's, you know, a waste of time, or whatever that might be? Like, it seems like it's made you a better runner.
Yeah, and I would say that the biggest thing that I noticed is that these two sports, swimming and cycling, they're not my profession. My profession is running. And so I do them without a kind of like an expectation of myself. I've run for 10 years now. And so if I run a route from home, I know how long a hill should take me. I know how fast I've done it previously. I know how to do a route both forwards and backwards. I've done every street in Diamond Creek. But when I get on a bike, or when I swim and you work out or whatever, even just doing it and showing up and then finishing it, that's success to me, because it makes me like, I'm not comfortable with it. Me just getting out and actually doing it, I feel like it's like when you do strength once a month, that once you do it, you're like, I'm above everyone else right now because I do strength, you know? And so it's just kind of like this kind of having that understanding of like, those other two sports for me are mentally very kind of relaxing, in that I have no expectations, I have no comparisons, and it's just like such a beautiful thing. Like yesterday I rode up Mount Buffalo, and everyone was like, that's one of the easiest of the climbs around here, and I ranked 790th on the women's leaderboard and 10,000th overall. And it was just so cool to be like, wow, you know, like in running, I'm like trying to find crowns. In cycling, I'm like, wow, I bow down to everyone who even gets out on this mountain, because it is bloody hard. And I think that it's just cool to kind of have that humbleness, and that ego kind of thing is just so nice. And cross training, you can't run as much as you want to. You can't run so much. It's so impactful on your body. And I've done 10 years of 100Ks when I was 15. I'm 26 now, and I've consistently run ultras. And if someone had given me a bike earlier on, and you know, it usually takes an injury for people to realize. I remember Dylan Bowman kind of saying, like, people double running, like running in the morning and the evening, is the most old school thing to do. Why would you double run with impact when you could run and get the same cardio, shaking out, moving the body, and cardio benefit on a bike in the afternoon? And then you take that and you think, well, as long as I have like a speed session, an easy run, and a long run, you know, like kind of like the three pillars of a training week. In between that, I could just cycle, and you would find that you would still have the cardio. Obviously, if you're doing the longer distances, the only thing you wouldn't have is like the conditioning. You probably need to do 2 long runs back to back to just kind of really get those quads going, but you'd be able to manage it super well. And I think that just working on that relationship and making it fun, and not only finding these sports when you get injured, so you have a negative relationship with them, finding them on your own. Whether it's rock climbing, it's something that can be completely, you know, you think, oh, I'm never going to use this running, but you will, because more than anything, it's giving you stoke and enjoyment. It's keeping and protecting that energy that you have for running. Like, you want to run, hold on to that for the day that you do run, rather than outrunning it every day and then getting to a start line and not being jazzed on the whole thing. I think that's kind of like the most important thing to me is that, like, I rode yesterday and today I was like, I can't wait to run the Razorback because I don't have to carry a bike with me. I don't have to worry about flats. It's just me in the mountains, and that's, you know, it is what I love, and that doesn't change me as a. People think I'm moving sports. I'm definitely not moving sports. I am a runner through and through. But I even love running more right now. And that's why Tarawera went so well, is I was frothing to run for 100 miles. I was like, I haven't run this long, and this has been my day's job for a very long time. It feels so good to just travel to New Zealand with my backpack, my runners, my one pair that I ended up having, and just kind of doing what I know I love. I don't think it needs to define you to do other sports, but I think it's such a cool way to just grow and learn, and, you know, so many cool skills that now I get to, and the cool thing is I can like combine them, like running and riding, like ride out to mountains, then run up and down them, and then ride back, or do things like that. It's just like they can kind of complement, and then your expanse for adventure is just widened so far, and that's really rad.
Yeah, I love the idea of like, yeah, like you did, just getting from A to B, but you make it like a, you know, an adventure, because you can, yeah, combine them all.
Yeah.
You've got a question, Jane. Hello. Oh, there she is. The old mute, unmute issues.
No, actually, I don't think Jane is muted. Maybe
not working.
Oh.
Anyway, give her a second. I don't know.
She could write it in the comments.
Yeah, maybe type it in the chat.
Yeah, chuck it in the chat. So where are you flying off to, Lucy? You heading to States first?
So I fly to Annecy for the Solomon training camp, which is in Annecy and then Lisbon, Portugal. And then I'll either float to Spain for Transvolcania, Austria, go see my mom, and then to the States. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Very, very exciting.
And are you taking your bike?
I will be taking the bike. I even bought a bike bag. I bought my own travel bike bag. That's when you know.
Yeah. And how about the surfboard? Are you heading to Portugal? Is that going to fit in the oversized luggage as well?
No, there's no way I can. In the US, I had snowboard and bike, and I was like, screw this. No, thank you.
It's just like that's your strength training, just carrying your shit around by the sounds of it.
Yeah. I tell you what, I had to learn a lot about how big things are. You know, I was just like turning and hitting people with my bike and my board, and I was just like, spatial awareness was I'm not good.
Oh dear. I wonder if we haven't heard back from Jane. No, I'm sure she'll work it out.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
Maybe I'll just quickly read that out in case not everyone can see it. Jane's just written, hi, how did you cope with the annoying comments when you started cycling? All the advice from everyone who had an opinion on how you should be doing things.
I get so many annoying comments on everything I do that I was just like, it's like water off a duck's back at this point. You know, I really opened myself up for when I did the triathlon, that I wanted as much help and thoughts and any opinions or whatnot about, you know, like, but man, it's just like, at some point, just let me enjoy the sport and let me just do it my way. But you know, it was just kind of a thing where you just had to pick and choose where it comes from and who's it coming from? How is it kind of, what is it trying, like, are they trying to help you, or are they just trying to like break you down for how you look and the way you're doing things? But, you know, all in all, people were really supportive. I think like the biggest thing for me was just like, I raced Boston on a road bike, and everyone was on TT bikes, and everyone thought I was ridiculous. And I was just like, I just don't need another bike. And then kind of things like, you know, the bike fit. And I was like, well, if I can run a 3:20 marathon off this bike fit, I would say that it fits pretty well if I'm not getting injured. So I appreciate it, but it's not like you're not sitting on it, so you don't have to worry about my back bit. So there was a lot of that. And then there was a lot of like, you know, people were so fascinated about my watts. And I was like, I don't know what a watt is. And I don't have anything that's like, I don't think anything's measuring watts on my bike. So I'm sorry, I can't talk your lingo. And I also just like never really got around the whole cycling attire, like the whole very tight lycra. And just kind of like, I felt like I was always on the outside as like this, like, you know, trail runners are just so relaxed and they're so just like, oh, you know, I was like, I don't have a coach. I'm fine. I can work this out. Like, all I got to do is cycle. You know, it's pretty good. I got a really nice bike. So I was given it. I don't know, like how good it is, but it's going to go as fast as I want it to go. So that's that. And yeah, I felt like I just kind of was just kind of blissfully unaware. I was like, look, people can give me opinions. They always will. They always do. But yeah, it definitely grinds at you for sure. And I know for Kona, like I've done a few podcasts talking about it. Everyone's been like, well, this is obviously what you've got to change and this is what you got to do. And I was like, I did a pretty good first Ironman. So I'm just going to try and repeat and replicate. And, you know, I'll finesse a little bit. But at the same time, I'm going to give myself grace. It's going to be 5 weeks after UTMB. And like I always said to myself, if I found myself competitive at UTMB, I would dig myself into a well to do well there. And I would just enjoy and celebrate Kona for what it was for as long as that day is. Because I'm an ultra runner, right? That's what I'm sponsored for. It's what I'm on Team Solomon for. Everything else is just kind of like fluff and fun. And so, you know, people can give me advice all the time. They always do. They tell me what to eat, what to look like, what to wear, how to talk, where to go. And it's just like, I really appreciate that. I'm so glad you don't have to live my life because I'm not going to do what you wanted me to do. So have a good one.
That is awesome. Thanks, Lucy. And thanks, Jane. And actually, Jane just says, good on you. It's been great to watch. I'm a road and gravel cyclist and runner and don't know about watts either. Do love the Lycra and congrats on your Lycra deal.
Hey, thanks, Jane.
And Mia, hey, Mia's just got a question. Oh, Mia, do you want to ask that yourself or do you want me to read it out?
Yeah, I can ask it. I had myself on mute because the kids are going a bit wild. So I saw the doco that Brian made running out where you ran the Lara Pinta, and the particular bit where you got lost at night really spooked me, even though you were being trapped. Oh, here come the kids, I'll run away. Yeah, and I just sort of wanted to know, like, I'm working up towards a bigger race, but how you went progressing to running at night on trail in the dark and sort of any tips working towards achieving that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. The Lara Pinta was a very extreme example, and I would hope that no one finds himself in that situation because it was pretty gnarly. But in terms of running at night, like the best thing you can do is get yourself a good head torch, which is ironic, I say, after saying that I just ran Tarawera with probably the worst head torch in the world. So I can tell you what I do not recommend, but I would invest in a really good, and I mean like 1,000 lumens. I can talk lumens, not watts. Head torch, which is kind of like a mountain bike head torch. It's really, really bright. The one's like up, there's moonlight. If you can send me a message and I can send you some examples that I think are really, really good. But that makes a complete difference. If your kind of line of sight is the smallest little patch, that makes you very claustrophobic. You can't see what's around you. But these kind of like up ones, you can kind of like adjust that one point's down to the ground and one point's forward or one point's to the side. You can kind of like have your circle bigger. And I think that running at night is some of the most beautiful running you can do, because what I found is that sometimes I get so overwhelmed with what's around me. I get kind of like, oh my God, that mountain over there looks massive. I know I'm going up that. All these people are watching me and looking at me. It just kind of feels like there's a lot happening. But at night, it's just kind of like all that matters is your patch of light. And that's so cool. Like all that matters is put your foot in that nice patch of light and then it will move forward. That light will move as you move. And it's just like the goal becomes very simplified. So it's really, really beautiful time. But if your head gets in the way of that and it starts to think of what could be in that darkness that you can't see, be it animals, people, you know, whatnot, that's when it gets really challenging. And that's our mindset will always go to the what if this is out there, what if this happens? And you know, and it's always important, like I had my tracking, it's good that people know where you're going to do, like start off with just running streets to kind of like get yourself comfortable, then go on to like local trails where there's lots of get out options onto roads. Always tell people where you're going, and then, you know, go with someone out into the, you know, a bit more further removed, but be with someone so that you both have head torches, both have first aid, both have communications. See if there's also like signal, so that you know, check like if there's Telstra in that area, kind of thing. And then kind of just like incrementally challenge yourself like a little bit more. And I think like one of the best things I always did when I was younger to kind of get confidence with it was that I would run, you know, like an hour in like the dusk and finish with like 20 minutes in the dark, and then I'd be home. And then I just slowly maybe leave a bit later, or daylight savings would suffer my long run, and so it would have to be in the dark. And I would just build that confidence up, and someone always knew where I was, and I'd always like send like dad a message and be like, hey, I'm like at this point, like just checking in. But really to be comfortable in those situations, gear is your number one. So having a good headlight, knowing the signal range, having your first aid, being self-sufficient, having food, having water, and also just like being very calm. And I think that it's really challenging when a lot of the news that we hear and we see is of the bad stuff that happens out there. But there's a lot of good stuff that happens out there too. It's just that doesn't make the news. So I really think that just kind of like run the local streets, get onto some small trails, go with somebody, and then, you know, try and find that confidence and comfortableness. Completely honest, like in the Lara Pinto, I was not comfortable out there. I was very, very afraid. I had my phone was cracked. My headlight again sucked because it was dying of battery, and I was off track. It was just like all the things going wrong at once. But like all you ever have when you're out in those situations is your effort and your attitude, right? So it was like, okay, Lucy, you can stop, take a minute, change that battery. Like, don't worry about trying to keep moving forward and trying to just like stay on pace. Take a minute, eat something, because that always makes you feel better. Change the battery. Okay, cool. You've got light now and you've got energy in you, just so you can make some smart decisions. You can get really frustrated, upset, and angry at this, but like that's such a waste of energy that you need to move forward. So instead of being that, let's just be like super calm, bigger perspective. What can we do? Look at your paper map that you never thought you'd have to use, pull out the compass so you look like you know what you're doing, and just try and like navigate around it. And it was just kind of like your effort and your attitude are the two things you always ever have. And part of that effort is the effort to get the right gear. And it's just like, they're expensive pieces of equipment, a headlamp, but they can save lives. And so they're just totally worth investigating into the best ones, and just making sure it's really comfortable for you. But it's not easy. It's definitely a really challenging thing. And it's taken me 10 years to do something like Lara Pinto and feel like I wasn't too overwhelmed by the whole thing. But I had no water at that point. So I was also very dehydrated and hallucinating. So I'm probably not the person to ask at that point.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, but I actually do have a really good head torch.
Oh, good.
Yeah, but just more the confidence of being solo in the dark. But yeah, that's really good. Staggering it in, that's good advice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you live? Yeah.
On the surf coast.
On the surf coast. Yeah. I mean, there's so many cool ways that you can kind of like just kind of go into the hinterland and then drop down, and you're never too far from like a town and service, especially.
Yeah.
But yeah. Mm.
Cool. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks for that excellent question, Mia. Hill, you had a question, mate.
Just a quick one, I guess, kind of following up from Mia's a bit, but like, do you always, I know you listen to podcasts occasionally, Lucy, but like, are you if you're having a session, do you like go nothing, or like, what do you normally, do you always listen to stuff, or what's your kind of,
I go through phases. Sometimes I cannot stand the head talk, listening to my breathing and just silence. I'm like, no, that's not motivating. And then sometimes I could think of nothing worse than like having a soundtrack to my run. You know, it's kind of like, I want the birds and my breath and just the simplicity of what I'm doing. That's nice. But I would say currently I'm in a phase where I can kind of do both. I would say if I'm doing like a hard run, intervals and stuff, I don't really want to listen to that like panting breathing. So I'll have like some music in. And then if my run is really long, I will listen to like a podcast. And I find podcasts, I always run slower too, because it's just voices and conversation. And so whereas music, I get competitive with and I try and match the beat. I'm just obviously a very competitive person, but I'm always like, oh, I can match this. This is like a 180. I can get this cadence up. But yeah, I kind of ebb and flow. And especially with like on the bike, I use shock headphones, so they don't go in my ear, they just sit on my bone conducting, and I've loved having them on the bike because they allow me to hear if traffic comes. The thing kind of just like fades, but I've been listening to podcasts on there and just kind of really enjoying, if you're gonna have to ride for 4 hours a day, it's nice to at least learn something and listen to a nice happy conversation. So it's it's definitely ebbs and flows, but like I'm out on the Razorback, I would never want to put music in up there. It's like you are in the music video. It's so beautiful.
Totally. Yeah, I've got those shock ones too, and I don't use them all the time, but they are good when you kind of want to have a, you know, I guess for you, Mia, as well, if you are, because I often do that at night and I run and I'm like, someone could come and like tap me on the shoulder and I'd be like, you know, taken by surprise. So you want to have like, be aware of your surroundings. But if you are a, you know, serial podcaster like I am, it's like, don't take away my podcasts.
Totally. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah. And don't listen to serial killer podcasts.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like, oh, you listen to this new murder podcast? I'm like, no, thank you. You cannot pay me to listen to anything like that. I'm like, I spend too much time, out on the trails and camping on my own to like even contemplate listening to those.
Yeah. I was reading someone's Instagram and they were like, oh, I really love listening to crime when I run. And I was like, absolutely not. I'm listening to what am I listening to? The Inspired Unemployed, The Imperfects, just like real funny, happy, very, inspirational stuff. And that's it. Light.
Totally.
I keep it light. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. Totally.
Cool. Well, it's always frustrating when we hit this time because, Lucy, I feel like we could chat all day, but we should wind up and let you get back to enjoying beautiful Bright.
Yes, I've got a shower in the river calling me because I stink.
Very nice, very nice. Hey, I just want to apologise to everyone. We always start our meetings with an acknowledgement of country, and I forgot this meeting, so I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. My bad, sorry about that. But it is time to wind up. A huge thanks for everyone who came along today, and a massive thanks to Lucy. As mentioned before, please check out For Wild Places. There was a little link there to check out our membership option, and also if you want to join our newsletter, it comes out every week. That's free. It's great to be chatting to more people. But yeah, Lucy, thank you so much, and we'll be thinking of you and following you, especially later this year when you tackle the UTMB and Kona. That's just sensational. Folks, you probably are already, but if there's anyone out there watching who wants to follow and get in touch with Lucy, it's Lucy_Bartholomew on Instagram, and Lucy's also got a website. So yeah, Lucy, thank you so much, and let's stay in touch, eh?
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate this time. It's really, really cool to connect with you all, and you guys are doing such a great job with everything. It's very exciting, even to see you see Hillary at Warburton and like counting gel wrappers. I was like, oh, it's good to see.
Yeah, I usually I have a love-hate relationship with them because usually I'm like, they're so gross and sticky, but this weekend it was like, give us your gel wrappers. I want your gel wrappers.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's like one of those things, you turn the thing you hate into the thing you love, and then reframe it. But safe travels, Lucy, and we'll be watching with, I don't know, equal parts jealousy and amazement as you for all the adventures ahead. So have an awesome time.
Thank you. Enjoy Wilson's prom.
I will. Thanks everyone for coming.
if anyone's near the Yangs this Saturday, For Wild Places has a traction event on down there, short for trail action. So check out our social media for more details on that. On that note, thanks again, Lucy, and thanks everybody. Stay safe, enjoy the trails, and hopefully see you next time. Bye.
See you. Thank you.